Disney's Snow White is breaking records, but not the kind they were hoping for. With 5 disastrous test screenings, a trailer that's among the most disliked in history, and rumors of panic behind the scenes, is this the final straw for Disney's live-action remakes? Even CEO Bob Iger seems stunned as backlash mounts, with fans accusing the company of losing its magic and doubling down on divisive agendas. But is it just about woke storytelling, or is there more to this chaos? Let's dive into the shocking details Disney doesn't want you to know. Disney is facing one of its toughest times under CEO Bob Iger, as backlash against the live-action Snow White remake reaches unprecedented levels. The controversy has driven a wedge between the studio and its audience, with many asking if Disney has lost its magical touch. The situation became more dire after the trailer for Snow White earned widespread criticism, quickly ranking among the most disliked in recent history. According to rumors, Disney is attempting to mitigate the backlash by editing the movie and removing scenes they believe are contributing to the uproar. However, these behind-the-scenes adjustments seem insufficient to reverse the damage. Reports suggest that Bob Iger himself is dissatisfied with the direction of the project, leaving him to question whether the current approach can salvage the movie. Following a string of challenges during 2023 and 2024, many speculate that Iger is simply biding his time until 2025, hoping for a fresh start. Yet this tumultuous period has prompted significant reflection on Disney's missteps. One of the key issues appears to be Disney's handling of beloved classics. The company's strategy of reimagining these timeless tales as live-action adaptations infused with themes of DEI was intended to resonate with modern audiences. Instead, critics argue that these efforts have alienated fans by replacing messages of unity with narratives perceived as divisive, particularly those that target specific demographics. As this backlash grows, it's evident that Disney is grappling not only with the failure of a single project, but also with a broader disconnect between its vision and audience expectations. This disconnect has left Iger scrambling to address the fallout, making these years some of the most challenging in Disney's history. Disney's recent struggles are not isolated missteps, but part of a larger trend of continuous failures. One box office disappointment after another has painted a bleak picture of the company's trajectory, leading some to joke that Disney has mastered the art of losing money. Unfortunately, these flops came at the worst possible time, coinciding with the company's 100th anniversary, a milestone that should have been a proud celebration of its legacy. Instead, it turned into a year of public embarrassment, marking one of the darkest chapters in Disney's history. Among the most glaring failures is the upcoming Snow White remake set for a 2025 release. Early signs suggest it could become one of Disney's biggest disasters yet. The project has reportedly failed 5 test screenings, a staggering statistic that goes beyond red flags. It's more like a neon sign screaming for the production to halt, yet Disney continues to push forward, seemingly unwilling to acknowledge the inevitable outcome. The troubles with Snow White extend beyond the failed screenings. Public backlash has intensified, with widespread boycotts gaining traction and growing dissatisfaction surrounding lead actors Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot. This project is no longer just about one movie, it has become a symbol of Disney's broader struggles. At the heart of the controversy is the company's approach to DEI. While the intention to promote inclusivity is commendable, Disney's execution has been criticized as performative and authentic. Instead of bringing audiences together, the company's initiatives have alienated many longtime fans. By labeling dissenting voices as antagonistic, Disney has inadvertently widened the gap between itself and its audience. What began as a marketing push for modern values has spiraled into a cultural and financial crisis. The backlash against Snow White has grown so intense that only those entirely detached from reality might still hold hope for its success. Reports indicate that Bob Iger is in full crisis mode, working frantically to mitigate the damage as Disney navigates one catastrophe after another. The studio's struggles with Snow White are not just a failure of one production, but a reflection of deeper systemic issues threatening to redefine the future of the company. Bob Iger's attempts to control the narrative surrounding Disney's woes have been nothing short of ineffective. His earlier assurance to quiet the noise around controversies like Snow White now seems more like a hollow promise. Months later, the backlash is louder than ever, with the project continuing to generate widespread criticism. Iger's main strategy? Doubling down on DEI as though it's a universal solution to all of Disney's problems. Unfortunately for him, the results speak otherwise. His dismissal of the boycotts is insulting and inflammatory, claiming that critics are simply a misguided minority has only added fuel to the fire. If the audience is truly as small and misinformed as he says, then why are Disney's films flopping one after the other? Why is Snow White facing such overwhelming resistance? The disconnect between Disney's vision and its audience's expectations has never been more apparent. Perhaps it's time for Iger to consider that the issue isn't with the audience but with the product. Take the infamous CGI Dwarfs, for example. These digital characters, which were meant to replace real actors, have been widely panned for looking cheap, uninspired, and lifeless. For a company with Disney's resources, this level of quality is not just disappointing, it's embarrassing. The decision feels like a desperate shortcut from a studio that once prided itself on groundbreaking creativity. Instead of making these characters memorable or magical, Disney seems to have assumed that the audience would simply accept whatever they put on screen, but fans notice and they're not happy. The use of lackluster CGI has alienated the very audience that has cherished the Snow White story since 1937. Fans who grew up loving the original are now left disillusioned, questioning what happened to Disney's signature magic. This misstep, combined with the perception of a forced DEI agenda, has snowballed into a full-blown public relations disaster. Each decision, from the poorly received trailer to the awkward CGI choices, has eroded the trust and goodwill that Disney once enjoyed. Ultimately, Snow White isn't just a struggling project, it's a symbol of Disney's broader failures. The company's creative spark seems dimmer than ever, and every move to salvage the situation only appears to dig the hole deeper. If Disney hopes to regain its footing, it might need to rethink its entire approach to storytelling, audience engagement, and the legacy it once so carefully cultivated. Bob Iger's time at Disney is ticking down with his retirement set for 2026. But instead of solidifying his reputation as one of the company's greatest leaders, he's at risk of being remembered as the CEO who oversaw Disney's downfall. Despite his efforts to regain control, his missteps keep piling up, leaving his legacy hanging by a thread. It's almost a tragic spectacle almost, but when you consider the repetitive mistakes, tone-deaf decisions, and Disney's refusal to pivot from failing strategies, sympathy becomes hard to muster. The studio's approach has alienated fans and created rifts even within its leadership. Reports suggest Disney's board of directors is losing confidence in Iger's decisions. Some have even floated the idea of skipping a theatrical release for Snow White and sending it directly to Disney. While this move wouldn't fix the film's fundamental issues, it could at least minimize financial losses. Unfortunately, Iger's stubbornness seems to be a major obstacle. Determined to prove his critics wrong, he's clinging to the hope that the movie will somehow succeed in theaters, even as evidence mounts that it's unlikely. This insistence on saving face is dragging the company deeper into turmoil, with Snow White merely one piece of a much larger puzzle. Disney's challenges go beyond this single project. The controversy surrounding Snow White symbolizes a broader crisis, a disconnect between Disney and its audience. Fans feel that the studio has drifted far from what made it a cherished part of popular culture. Instead of crafting timeless stories and relatable characters, Disney appears more focused on promoting woke narratives that feel more like corporate virtue signaling than genuine efforts at inclusivity. The strategy isn't working. Audiences have grown weary of being lectured rather than entertained, and the numbers prove it. Ticket sales are down, streaming growth is stalled, and even merchandise tied to these new stories struggles to sell. Fans aren't buying what Disney is offering literally or figuratively. To dig itself out of this mess, Disney needs a radical shift in direction. First, they must stop pretending everything is fine and acknowledge the missteps. Owning up to mistakes could go a long way in rebuilding trust. But most importantly, the studio needs to reconnect with the essence of what made it successful, creating high-quality, heartfelt stories that resonate with audiences. It's not about abandoning diversity or inclusion, it's about weaving those values into narratives that feel authentic and timeless rather than divisive or forced. Disney's path to redemption won't be easy, but it's far from impossible. The question is, will Bob Iger and the company make the necessary changes before it's too late, or will Disney continue to double down on strategies that push them further away from their audience and deeper into crisis? If Disney's recent track record is anything to go by, the company seems unlikely to change course. Instead of reevaluating its strategies, it may push its agenda even harder, doubling down on divisive storytelling while shifting the blame onto audiences for failing to embrace it. If this pattern continues, 2025 could very well end up as another disaster year, mirroring the steep declines of 2023 and 2024. This unyielding approach has left some investors questioning Disney's leadership and direction, accusing the company of effectively sabotaging itself. The primary issue? Disney appears to have drifted so far from its family-friendly foundation that it's alienating the core audience responsible for its decades of success. Families and longtime fans, once Disney's most loyal supporters, are turning away, frustrated by the company's shift in focus and tone. This alienation has led to significant financial repercussions, angering shareholders as Disney stock plummets. Reed Rubenstein, a former Department of Justice official now serving as senior vice president at America First Legal AFL, recently brought these issues to light in a scathing 50-page letter. Rubenstein accused Disney of pushing anti-police and anti-white narratives through its programming, labeling their efforts at virtue signaling as a complete misfire. The numbers tell a damning story. Since February 2021, Disney's market capitalization has nosedived by nearly 40%, shrinking from a colossal $341 billion to a far more modest $207 billion. To put this into perspective, it's like watching a sprawling luxury estate dwindle into a rundown fixer-upper. Rubenstein's letter didn't hold back, specifically calling out Disney's content for embedding overtly woke themes. One example he cited was a program designed for children that heavily emphasizes the idea that racism affects everyone and frames skin color as a defining aspect of identity. While tackling racism is a necessary and important conversation, critics argue that Disney's approach crosses the line from education into indoctrination. Rather than fostering understanding, the content appears to push a rigid worldview that feels more alienating than inclusive. One particularly controversial instance was found in an episode of Muppet Babies. Far from its playful and whimsical origins, the episode drew backlash for weaving heavy-handed messaging into a show meant to delight young audiences. This kind of pivot has left parents questioning whether Disney is still a safe and joyful space for their children, or if its programming has taken on an unwelcome preachiness that detracts from the magic they once adored. As Disney's missteps pile up, it's becoming increasingly clear that the company faces a crucial crossroads. Will they finally listen to their audience and return to the universal appeal that once defined them? Or will they persist in alienating fans and shareholders alike, driving themselves further into crisis? Time will tell, but the clock is ticking. Disney's current trajectory feels less like a celebration of its legendary past and more like an identity crisis spiraling out of control. While Gonzo's quirky storyline may seem harmless on the surface, critics argue it reflects a deeper issue, a deliberate attempt to prioritize messaging over storytelling. This shift, compounded by polarizing scenes in properties like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, has left audiences feeling disconnected. Moments like the tear gas sequence Rubenstein highlighted seem more like political statements than organic elements of a narrative, further alienating fans who once turned to Disney for escapism, not lectures. Gene Hamilton and the AFL's analysis cut to the core of Disney's dilemma. Their argument: Disney needs to let go of its current activist-driven approach and return to the timeless storytelling that resonated with audiences across generations. It's a call for balanced stories that inspire without dividing, captivate without preaching, and appeal to a universal audience rather than a vocal minority. The backlash against Disney isn't just about politics, it's about a company losing sight of its mission to create joy, wonder, and connection. With audiences turning away and shareholders losing confidence, the message is clear: it's time for Disney to reassess its priorities. The question is, can the company step back from the brink and rediscover the magic that once defined it? We'd love to hear your take. Do you think Disney can recover, or has the damage already been done? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're curious about what's next for Disney's turbulent journey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.